I want to preface this weird little video by saying that up until recently, I always discounted TV as simply an inferior media to movies. Some of my favorite films are these sprawling epics, and I don't just mean in terms of scale. One where you see the character progressively change for better or for worse. One where you can get lost in the world just from a 2-hour movie. Whether that's because of the ensemble of characters, the set pieces, the unfolding story, or anything else that might hook you into a good movie. And for the longest time, I just thought TV shows didn't have this ability. Obviously, this seems ridiculous and dismissive, but at the time when I was so obsessed with movies, I really only thought television could go as far as delivering the same cheesy sitcom episode every week, or some lackluster cop or crime drama. Of course, growing up I realized there are a lot of shows with fantastic storytelling and character development, but I was too impatient to sit through shows with multiple seasons or hours of content, whereas I could just get the same experience by watching a shorter movie. But I now realize TV shows are so much more than simply long movies. The best TV shows chronicle a story through multiple characters, as you pretty much get to see a glimpse into these characters' lives, usually over years of time. If the show runs long enough, you see these characters change and evolve, and if it's good enough, you understand and almost get to know these characters on a personal level. Alright, enough rambling. What is this video actually about? Man, I don't know. I kind of just wanted to make a video about some of my favorite TV shows in kind of a loose format. Keep in mind, I haven't really seen a ton of TV shows, I haven't watched everything, and there's still a lot for me to check out, but I just wanted to talk about some shows I really appreciate, throw some hot takes out there, you know. Here's a hot take. Breaking Bad, it's a good show. I'm sure you've heard this by now, but Breaking Bad is one of the best TV dramas of all time. The character progression of Walter White, a suburban father and teacher turned ruthless drug dealer, is truly fascinating to watch. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be talking about some pretty spoiler-heavy stuff for this show, so skip ahead to the timestamp listed. I basically just started watching this show because pretty much every meme I see now is somewhat oriented around Breaking Bad.
I am the danger.
Most of them being spoilers. In fact, a lot of things were spoiled for me even before watching it, but I still really enjoyed the show overall. Obviously, most of the characters are great. I love how Walter's pride just continues to grow. Starting out as just wanting to support his family if he dies of cancer, to greed eventually consuming him. One of my favorite lines in the show is from the season 5 episode Buyout.
Jesse, you asked me if I was in the meth business or the money business. Neither. I'm in the empire business.
It really just goes to show you how much the meth industry has changed him into a horrible human being. Continuing on talking about characters, Skyler White is definitely one of the most interesting characters in the show, and I don't really understand the amount of hate she gets. I thought most of her reactions were extremely grounded, and it's not like anyone in the show is morally pure. It kinda makes sense that Skyler cheated on Walt due to her suspicions about him and all the lying and distress he caused. And yeah, obviously that's not a good thing, but it's a TV show. Part of the reason I think she's so interesting is because she reminds me so much of regular moms, even my mom. But basically what would happen if this person is married to a meth dealer. Now, despite all my praises, I don't think the show's completely perfect. Season 3 is definitely my least favorite season. And that may be an unpopular opinion, but I just find it incredibly slow compared to every other season. And I feel like certain parts just drag on to slow the progression of Walt joining Gus's empire. Keep in mind that just because it's my least favorite season doesn't mean I don't like it. I think the cousins are extremely interesting characters. I love how little is shown about their backstory and how they are a continuous slow threat throughout most of the season. IFT is one of my favorite episodes of this season, simply because of the tensions that are rising between Skyler and Walter. And Gale is simply a pretty sweet character who meets a pretty tragic end with a great season finale cliffhanger. But other criticisms I have about the show is about season 5. And while I do think it's overall a great season, I find some aspects of it to be a little underwhelming in comparison to previous seasons. I think the neo-Nazis are the weakest villains of the entire show, simply because they aren't really fleshed out that much. Obviously, the cousins and Gus had very cryptic origins, but at least we knew their motives and understood characteristics about them, while Todd and the Goon Squad are just kind of murderous assholes. Despite this, Season 5 has some of the strongest performances and most exciting episodes out of the whole show. The train heist is amazing, and Say My Name is one of the best episodes of the whole entire show. This is really the season where we get to see Walter at his darkest and seeing Jesse at his lowest, especially when finding out what Walt did to Brock. It's pretty messed up. But my favorite season is easily season 4, which I find to be the most thrilling and suspenseful portion of the show. This is truly where Jesse shines, and you just begin to see how much he has been manipulated by Walt and Gus. In fact, I don't think I've ever felt more bad for a fictional character than Jesse. One of my favorite scenes is his final visit to the group rehab session.
Oh, right, this whole thing is about self-acceptance.
Kicking the hell out of yourself doesn't give meaning to anything.
So I should stop judging and accept.
To start.
So no matter what I do, hooray for me because I'm a great guy.
It's truly one of the best performances in the whole entire show. And Gus is easily my favorite character from the show, just because of how calculated and thought out all of his actions are. You can tell so much about his character and the amazing acting from simply his mannerisms. My all-time favorite episode is Hermanos, and it just has such a perfect pacing throughout the season. Episodes 6 through 13 is probably some of the greatest television you will ever find. Alright, enough about Breaking Bad. I'll give it overall a 9 out of 10. Now, another favorite show of mine, and one that I actually see a lot of parallels between Breaking Bad, is the anime Death Note. The show follows high schooler Light Yagami as he discovers a notebook which has the ability to kill anyone whose name is written down. Wacky antics happen, you get the idea. I'm going to be talking about some spoilers once again, so there's the timestamp. There's a lot of weird coincidental connections between both Breaking Bad and the show. Overall, there are pretty similar themes and story concepts, with a genius main antihero being constantly chased down by a detective in Death Note's case, and a DEA officer in Breaking Bad. Both have immediate family in law enforcement, and both have aliases, Walters being Heisenberg and Lights being Kira. There's 2 goth chicks, as well as both the main characters tragically meeting their ends in both finales. These shows are both pretty similar in quality, but what I love so much about Death Note is just watching the show and thinking, how the fuck did the writers actually come up with this? In the episode Confrontation, Light hides his notebook by, I'm just quoting from the wiki here, once the ink reservoir is inserted, it acts as an insulator, preventing the flow of electricity around the circuit. When the fake base of the drawer is put back, a piece of rubber fills the same role. If someone were to try and force the bottom of the drawer open, however, the circuit would connect, igniting the gasoline connected to the thick plastic casing and instantly setting the Death Note on fire. This would destroy all the evidence that Light ever possessed a killer notebook. Upon potential questioning, Light plans to say that he was hiding his real personal diary in the drawer and destroyed it so it can never be read by anyone other than himself. Like, how does anybody ever come up with that? Seriously. People had to sit down in a room and come up with that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Again, I love how tense the show gets, and the animation is great. I'll be honest, it's been about a year since I last watched it, so I don't remember everything, but the tension/friendship occurring between Light and Elle was so stressful yet so fun to watch. You can never really tell when Elle trusted Light, but sometimes they did seem like genuine friends. Of course, I have my criticisms. The second part of the show is significantly weaker than the first half, and I hate the fucking new kid detective. He is so fucking annoying, I hate him. Other than that, great show with also a pretty good ending. Also, the soundtrack is filled with bangers. It's one of the best in any show or movie. The orchestral pieces are so dramatic, and the kind of math rock/trip hop tracks are so catchy. I actually listen to them a lot while studying, so even if you hate the show, listen to that soundtrack. It's pretty good. Okay, Death Note, solid 8 out of 10. Speaking of Death Note, anime. Shin. Anime Shin. That was a good trend. I know I just gave a bunch of praises to an anime, but I've never really been the hugest fan of the media as a whole, or at least when it comes to television, as there's a bunch of anime movies that I love, and there's still a lot of anime TV out there that I still need to watch, as I really haven't watched a ton. But I do notice a lot of similar problems with the shows I've seen, or just things that bug me. Everything is over-explained way too goddamn much. Action scenes, which I may remind you are a centerpiece to a lot of anime, are usually awfully animated. Dialogue is almost always awful.
Get lost. You wouldn't recognize a goddamn vampire if one jumped up and bit you on the end of your fucking dick.
And there's often no defining characteristics for any main characters other than being the hero or being funny or being obnoxiously evil. Keep in mind these are traits in a lot of other TV shows as well, as these criticisms also go out to just regular shows. I guess I can't really talk though because I've seen like maybe 10 anime in my whole entire life, and I haven't seen any of these shows, so I guess I'm not qualified to say anything. However, talking about anime I have seen, One Punch Man was pretty cool, you know, he punched stuff a lot. I watched it like 5 years ago, but I actually enjoy a lot from at least what I remember. There's also the show Gantz, which I watched for some reason. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It's just a weird show to watch when you aren't really familiar with anime. It's a pretty cool show, even if there are a lot of really questionable moments. Overall, anime shows are just something I need to watch and experience more. I didn't like Jujutsu Kaisen, Hunter x Hunter was boring, and I will never watch One Piece. Don't ever ask me to do it because I will not. I'm not watching 800 episodes of show. However, because I'm a fat, greasy American, there are some animated shows that I am quite fond of. South Park has always been an extremely important show to me. In 8th grade, I decided to watch the entire show in order within the span of, I think, 3 months, and it was such a blast. No matter how old some of the earlier seasons get, the show is just timeless. Even episodes like The Biggest Douche in the Universe that directly referenced current events as of 2002 don't feel outdated because the humor lies outside of just references, unlike most animated comedies. I think there's already been enough praise on the internet of how well written the show is, and unlike most shows, throughout over 20 years of running, the show still has great moments. The newest season as of writing this is probably the best season in a long time. 9 out of 10, good shit. Generally, every other animated comedy show is usually god-awful, but there are some hidden gems out there, which leads me to Adult Swim. Most of the stuff these guys put out in the 2000s was amazing. Aqua Teen Hunger Force is pretty fun, The Boondocks has an amazing mix of comedy and political commentary, Moral Oral is an existential nightmare of a show that is one of the more underrated shows I've mentioned so far. But my favorite out of all of these has to be Xavier Renegade Angel, which is one of the most underrated shows ever. I shit you not, this has some of the most ingenious jokes and writing out of any show I've ever seen. Each episode is only 11 minutes, but there are so many jokes flying at you, and the show is so fast-paced that it feels extremely overwhelming in a good way. Obviously, one of the most notable things about the footage I'm showing you is the animation. It's so uncanny and amateurish and kinda gross, but there's something oddly charming about it. It's very much a precursor to weird YouTube animation trends. Going back to the comedy, every time I try to rewatch a new episode, I pick up on so many new things, and yet I don't think I'll ever be able to fully dissect an episode. But to recap the plot, the show follows Xavier, who's a shaman-like figure going around trying to help others. It usually ends up destroying the people around him, or even the environment in some instances. I really enjoy how messed up of a character Xavier is. He's pretty much a sociopath who has no remorse for anything he does. The show even touches on a lot of political and spiritual commentary, just in a really absurdist way. I highly recommend it. It's not even that long, only at 2 seasons, so it's a pretty quick watch. 9 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. Now, the same creators of Xavier Renegade Angel, PFFR, created a similarly surreal and underrated show a few years before called Wonder Chosen, which aired on MTV2 of all places. I'm convinced this show is straight up evil and cursed. It was an extremely controversial show at the time, angering many parents mistaking it for a kid's show, even though in the first 5 seconds the show has a warning stating it's strictly for adult viewing only. Kinda says more about the parents than the show. One of my favorite videos on YouTube is actually a preacher reacting to one of the episodes, calling the show satanic.
Brother, if God spares this country, you do like the old creature said, they'd have to raise up Sodom and Gomorrah and apologize to them. We are not going to get by with this kind of stuff. You're in the last days.
It's probably like the best reaction video ever made. But anyways, the show is somewhat of a parody of educational puppet shows like Sesame Street. While following a somewhat skit comedy format, most of the show is very political in nature, touching on topics like race, religion, and sexuality. So if you aren't into that, this show is definitely not for you. There's always a loose plot in each episode revolving these puppet characters, and it's always usually pretty dark or morbid. But there are these skits that are interlaced between the episodes, such as Beat Kids, where a kid will interview random people on the street. My favorite one of these is where this girl interviews Wall Street traders, asking them who they've exploited today.
Who did you exploit today?
Who did I exploit? I don't think I did yet.
But are you?
Yeah, probably sometime today.
Citizens, rise up! Rise up!
The show can be a bit much at times, and it's not exactly transparent with its themes, but it's extremely entertaining. Also, a lot of memes have spawned from it again, even if it wasn't that popular of a show. 8 out of 10, good stuff. Why am I doing this rating thing? Continuing on underrated shows is possibly my favorite show of all time. A show so underrated that I'm willing to bet many of you have probably not even heard of it. That's right, I'm talking about a Canadian show by the name of Kenny vs. Spenny. If I had to sum up the show, it's somewhat of a comedy, reality, game show, with each episode involving the two childhood best friends having to live and compete with each other in various competitions, including who can wear a blindfold the longest, who can drink more beer.
It's the diabolical genius against the drunk.
Whoa.
He is a horrible drunk.
I'm not
who
a
is
drunk. Stop
obnoxious.
calling me a drunk. What is your strategy here?
Who can wear a dead octopus on their head the longest, who can blow the biggest fart, first guy to get a stain loses, and so on. One of the main draws to the show is not only the ridiculous competitions and the antics both Kenny and Spenny get into, but the clash of these two characters. Kenny is a manipulative, evil genius who is always willing to cheat and able to torment Spenny, who is a neurotic, paranoid, and depressed individual who believes in competing in competitions fairly without cheating.
I'm sure you're all saying to yourself, Kenny, it's obvious the guy lost. Why don't you just make him do a humiliation? Why do you go for his stupid rules? You know why? Because every single time we do one of these little get dirty games, I beat him. And I want to beat him down. I want everyone to know I'm better than him. He's a loser. I'm a winner.
And winners don't use drugs. Well, a little bit.
What makes the show so entertaining is how these two people build off of each other so well comedically. Watching Kenny unfurl his plans to cheat or find loopholes in the competition is always so entertaining to watch, to the point where the competition isn't even really the main focus, but rather how much entertainment Kenny can get from messing with Spenny. Some episodes even deviate from the competition completely. Another essential part of the show is that whoever loses the competition has to do a humiliation of some kind, most of which are actually pretty fucked up and have even resulted in the brief cancellation of the show. This was due to the humiliations always airing at the end of the show, right before CBC News, which is a Canadian news company. However, the show later moved on to a new channel. It really proves how much this show pushed the boundary of what could actually be shown on television. It's not exactly possible for most shows to be able to make episodes like who can drink more beer or who can smoke more weed. And I know this is really redundant, but lastly, the show is just extremely funny.
Grandpa, you were my first lover. Grandpa, you said there was no other. Grandpa would open the door and see little Spenny asleep. He'd wiggle his finger as he sucked on my dink. Grandpa, stop molesting me.
Certain episodes have made me laugh harder than I care to admit, and it's insanely rewatchable. In fact, I've probably watched like every episode 5 times, which is actually kind of sad now that I think about it. You used to be able to watch the whole series entirely on YouTube, thanks to the creator of the show, Kenny Hotz, but it has now largely been deleted for some yet-to-be-explained reason.
What the fuck?
You can still watch most of the episodes on YouTube, but some are mislabeled, and there are a couple of missing episodes. But please, try the show out, as it was pretty popular in Canada, but it never really had a large audience anywhere else. If I had to recommend an episode to start out with, it would probably be Who Can Blow the Biggest Fart. But if you're a bit squeamish, try Who Can Wear a Blindfold the Longest. 10 out of 10. It's my favorite show ever. It's a masterpiece. If you're like me and you like stupid shit like this, then you probably also like... I'm gonna try to be a little quicker with my overall thoughts on these next shows, but Jackass, it's a classic. Obviously the movies are better and more ambitious, but the show is humble beginnings and all. Just a bunch of guys hurting themselves and doing silly things. You get the idea, it's a fun time. Nathan For You follows Nathan Fielder, a man who graduated from one of Canada's top business schools
with really good grades,
as he tries to help businesses in need with forward-thinking ideas and methods. Like Kenny vs. Spenny, a lot of humor lies within Nathan's characteristics himself. If you haven't really noticed already, I kind of like TV shows if they just have good characters. But anyway, Nathan is a painfully awkward and lonely man.
You know what you are? You remind me of the Wizard of Loneliness, because you're your own self, your own wizard. That's what you are. Look at you in a pink shirt and everything else. Oh, you're killing me. You have no friends. That's why you're the Wizard of Loneliness.
Yet somehow he is always able to get unsuspecting businesses to commit to extremely ridiculous ideas. like converting a local coffee shop into a Starbucks parody, getting 40 cleaning ladies to clean a house in 6 minutes, and getting a frozen yogurt store to sell a poo flavor. It's a pretty wild show that I highly recommend. Up next is Fooly Cooly. I know I've now just completely lost any structure that was previously in this video, but it's an extremely creative, colorful, and weird show. This kid basically gets a robot to grow out of his forehead. It's a good time. I haven't watched all of it yet, so that's why I'm kind of just mentioning it towards the end, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Okay, so I've covered pretty much everything I want to talk about extensively, but I'm just going to mention some more shows I've seen, at least partially, in a rapid fire kind of approach. Black Mirror is a pretty cool science fiction anthology show. I watched a couple episodes from season 2 and 3. It was cool. The Sopranos was alright, definitely influential to a lot of these dramas, but I wasn't really crazy about the pace. Everybody told me to watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, so naturally I watched the original, and it's pretty cool. Rick and Morty has a good first season. The Simpsons is charming enough. I watched the first season of Stranger Things 5 years ago. The Eric Andre Show is the best late night talk show. I really don't know what they're gonna do for season 2, but Squid Games was pretty fun. And that pretty much wraps up everything I can remember. I know this is kind of an unconventional video, but I just wanted to talk about TV shows I dig and don't dig as much. Okay, outro time. Okay, so I kind of like to make these outros like non-scripted, just like a bit more casual, I guess. First, I plan on uploading more. I know it's been kind of inconsistent with the uploads, especially like there's just been a lot of gaps. I plan on, uploading quicker. And now I think I kind of have the ability to do that more often. Now that I'm not working on the iceberg video, it's just a lot easier to make these like kind of shorthand videos, which is kind of why I just wanted to put something out as quickly as possible, as I could, of course, after all the buzz the iceberg video got. Speaking of which, the iceberg video, first off, like that kind of blew up and I was kind of shocked. If you're here from the video, I thank you for sticking around. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. But the main thing I want to address is the comments, which sure was a lot of them. But yeah, I'm not sure like if I should make some kind of comment response video or address them in some way, which I really want to actually. It might be nice to kind of clear up some things, but I don't. Is that kind of like an archaic thing to do? Like, I know that's not. I think that was like always you had the comeback videos in like 2014, but it's not really a thing anymore. I might still do it, but I don't want to come off as like bashing comments I don't like. I'm gonna mention briefly, but a lot of people were mentioning genres that weren't on the list. First off, I just want to say a couple things. I didn't make the list, and second, the list was made in 2019. So all your sigil cores and Daria cores and glitch cores and fart cores are not on it because they weren't really a thing back in the day. Second off, a lot of people were saying that because of the intro, which I was not like transparent at all about being sarcastic in the intro. It didn't even come off as sarcastic, like it literally just came off as me trying to be arrogant, or at least that's like what it may seem like from an outsider perspective. So, I didn't actually mean that. Like, and obviously I don't know why I was expecting like people to stay for the outro, which is like an hour and 30-minute video, which I totally understand. It was in 360p. Don't worry, I don't know why that happened. I figured it out with this video, hopefully. But I will admit, I did a really bad job of conveying my sarcasm, so I understand why those comments are there. So I apologize about not being transparent enough on that. But yeah, it's at 360p because I'm an idiot who didn't know that the Premiere profile was set to that resolution. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I figured, maybe it would be kind of funny to make a comment comeback type video, but let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought of this video. And I gotta stop making these outros so long, because they're gonna be longer than the actual video. I'll try to come up with a new video idea soon, and I'm never doing one of those iceberg things again. The trend is dead, and it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. Okay, I'm done. Thank you. Goodbye.